Hello, my name is Ben, and I am your host of the Too Vague podcast this week. Normally it's one word, two hosts, stories, trivia, and video games, but I was at PAX over the holiday, so I was quite busy with that. I had a couple of really great interviews with some developers. First one I had was Dan Paladin, one of the co-founders of the Behemoth games. If you're familiar with Castle Crashers or Alien Hominid, you've definitely heard his name. He's got the very recognizable style for all those games. And then another developer from JOFSOFT on a game that I saw at the show that I was quite impressed with, called Pizza Bandit. He is sort of a managing person, also design developing. A couple of really exciting interviews. Also, this episode, I've got a review. Thank you to our very own PR ninja, Robert Lashley, who gave me a release code a couple of weeks before I left for PAX. Unfortunately, due to some technical difficulties, I'm a little bit late on getting this review out. But yeah, I can tell you about that very quickly. Before we get into the main part of the show, let me tell you about my trip to Seattle. So on the first day I came in, which was a Wednesday, a couple days before the show, was exhausted, went to sleep, exciting stuff. And then the next day I woke up and did a little bit of work on the podcast so I could release it as soon as possible. And that was the one that I had interviews with Christian and Erik from Imaginary Game Studios. So I released that and then got my pass from the convention center. And then my friend Yost, who has been working at PAX for, long time, almost ever since it just started out. So he's kind of an old pro around there. He works in the media room and he helps set up networking stuff for the show. Had some dinner with him and his wife, Claire, who has this really cool business where, it's just outside of Seattle. It's kind of make your own pottery. So it's like you pick which pottery you want to paint and then they will fire it for you and whatnot. She seems to be picking up in business, according to what Yost was telling me. Like any of these kind of businesses, the first couple of years, especially coming out of the pandemic, were a little rough, but it was sort of a break-even kind of thing. And now they're starting to really be known a little bit more. They do a lot of special get-togethers with pet organizations and things because they're both animal lovers. So we went to this really awesome, and I can't remember the name of the place. I'm going to have to ask, but it was this sort of an Irish bar kind of place that had on the menu, I am a sucker for corned beef and cabbage. So I was like, that is the perfect meal for my pre-PAX. A lot better than what I had the night before I went to bed, which was a couple of burgers from the hotel. Not that the hotel place was bad. It was just a couple of burgers and fries. Then I woke up the next day to get to the Seattle Convention Center very early. I'm not normally one who wakes up before the crack of noon. So I got there right on time as they were letting people in for their 9 o'clock appointments. I'll tell you about what I saw at the show in its own episode, because it was a lot of really cool and interesting stuff. I think it was after day one, I went and I ate at my favorite place, which I found last year, which was the Dough Zone, which is like all sorts of dumplings, Chinese traditional buns. They also had some milk tea, which I had, which was pretty good. It was yummy. But that's where the story turns a little sour, because as I was waiting for the restaurant, I was using my laptop, and my number's up. I close my laptop and go in, have something to eat, and then I come back to the hotel, and my screen is cracked. So there must have been like a rock or something in there that when I shut the laptop, it cracked it. I spent some time at the hotel trying to figure out if I thought I renewed my Apple Care coverage, but sadly I did not. So I was going to be without a computer for the rest of the time while I was there. That was probably a mixed blessing, I think. I had a plan to do some work on episodes, but instead it kind of forced me to enjoy Seattle the last day. I probably would have been working hard on episodes and not enjoying the sights. sometimes that kind of stuff happens and just kind of have to roll with it. Like I said, mixed blessing, turned out pretty well, I think. Saturday night is when I went to the What's Good Games podcast. Their sort of going away event. They're shutting their doors after about 7 years. I think I've talked to you about them before. They're a very influential sort of, I mean, you know, they have an excellent community, just great people, and it's just kind of like they're very professional in their way as far as they show their passion and stuff. So I kind of wanted to model my show after that a little bit, a mix of humor and fun and trivia and video games. I thank them for providing a template on how to do a really good show. Thank you to What's Good Games. It's sad to see you guys leave. Andrea, Britt, and Rihanna, the best of luck to you all. Hopefully we'll see you soon, but I know being a parent is tough too. So focus on your children, focus on your family for a little while. We're listeners. We're not really your family, but we understand. Thank you so much for your 7 years. It was nice seeing you, Andrea, and the, what was it called? Marble 21, or at the venue where you had the party. Oh, I also got a Polaroid while I was there. Ooh, who remembers Polaroids? It was for the latest Life is Strange. There was kind of a combo event. So it was the Life is Strange. The latest game has to do with photographs. So they had someone there who was taking Polaroids of people and giving them to them. I remember Polaroids from when I was a child. My brother had a Polaroid camera, and I had a disc camera. No one remembers disc cameras. Probably not. So that was Saturday, and then Sunday, after the show, I went and had dinner with Christian and Erik. That was pretty cool. Got further connected with them, and really want to have them on the show, both of them, separately. Being in my 50s, sometimes it's a little hard to make friends. I don't know how to say this. I can talk to anyone and I can kind of make acquaintances, but good friends are kind of hard to come by. And this seems to be the start of a good friendship because we really, all three of us kind of have had a connection that I thought seemed to be started by when we did the interviews. And then when I saw them at the show, we'll see what happens with that. But I think I made a couple of new friends, which is always a nice thing. Then the last night I was there was the closing sort of ceremonies, and usually Yost and a small group of his buddies who work in the media room, they all go to the crab pot. So that's what we ended up doing and having dinner the final night of the show. So then the next day, since I had no computer, I could do whatever I wanted to. So I ended up waking up early and sort of planning out a little, I don't know, just a little walking route. I had someone tell me I should see the gum wall, which is kind of grody, but as a thought. So I started out going there, but on my way there, I saw the international, I don't know, Seattle's Selfie Museum, which is which is as ridiculous as it sounds. It's just a whole bunch of areas where you can take selfies, and they've got stands and ring lights and all sorts of things. So you just go in between each one and take as many selfies as you want for the low price of $25. But got to spend a little crazily while you're on vacation, right? The attendant had to show me how to take selfies, which is fine. She showed me on the camera how to do the timer and all that stuff, so that was cool. And then I walked down the alley where they have the gum wall, and it was like, it's not just a wall. Like if you picture gum wall and you just think it's a single wall, but it's kind of strange because the gum sticking starts and kind of builds to this very large amount, which is gross. And they had a little gumball machine. Like, really, you're going to put a gumball machine there? You're inviting people to do this? But okay, whatever. And as I walked by, my first thought was, with the amount of trace DNA on both walls of the alley, you could probably repopulate the planet. Like, my gosh, just crazy amount of gum and grossness. From there, I went to the Space Needle, which I'd never seen in person, and it was a lot smaller. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 600, no more than 650 feet tall. I just saw it. I felt no need to go up in it. I could have, but I spent that money at the Selfie Museum rather than going up in the Space Needle. Then made an appointment for whenever I go to Seattle, I stop at the Neko Cat Cafe, where they've been around for as long as I've been going. I think that's when they started, was about 2018, 2017, somewhere around there. I was missing my boys at the time. And also, thank you to Nancy, who's my neighbor, who watched the boys and sent me photos those first few days because I was missing my kitties. And then while I was there, hung out with the kitties for a while. After I went to Starbucks to wait for the appointment to get closer, I had a really good sandwich at the roasting plant Starbucks this time. It was kind of a lox, sort of a smoked salmon, and on something that had the consistency more of like a croissant, but not really a croissant, like a more dense croissant. But it was really good sandwich. And it had one of these greens on it that it's like by itself, it would taste gross, but as a part of the sandwich, it really kind of added to it. So then as I was walking home, it's my last night there. I talked to Casey, friend of mine, who recommended this Thai restaurant right by the hotel where I was staying called Noi Thai. Oh my gosh, they had some delicious food. Perfect to wrap up the trip. Wonderful trip. Saw some cool stuff. Broke my computer, but I got that all resolved, so now busy working on getting this and other episodes out for you. Thank you for being patient about that too. I hope the folks that I saw at PAX will also be patient. Now, on to my review of the game WISHLIST R from KIWIWALKS. This is the review code I got for my PlayStation 5, and it is a JRPG that originally in, I believe, 2015, this company KIWIWALKS made it for portable devices, and now it's become sort of a series on its own. The R stands for remake. So this is a remake of the original game. You play the part of a witch. Her name is Pieberry. She named herself because she was kind of sealed away. Something happens to break that seal, and she kind of goes off. So anyway, that's the basic story. And along the way, you meet other witches. The Pope is doing a witch hunt to try and get rid of all the witches. Spoilers, I'm not going to say, but he's got a reason for that. And then you have to collect these blessings in order to have enough power to fight the Pope. Like you do. The Pope has this power where he taps into a source that basically gives dark energy to people, and he's an evil Pope. That might be redundant. I don't know. I don't know if the Pope is really evil, but you know what? I'm going to go with it. This Pope is evil. And he experiments on his soldiers who are sent out to find and kill all the witches. And you meet a couple of characters along the way that have really cool story arcs. A character named Luna, who is a witch that you meet, and she has her own little story line in there. The second WitchSpring game focuses on her story. So they've got this thing where they focus on different characters, and it's during the same events of the witch hunts, at least for 3 of them that I know. Suyoung Jang, he is also the founder of KIWIWALKS. He's the director. He does a bulk of the work on the games as far as concept art, story writing, programming, etc. But he also did some hiring of freelance folks for some of the music and additional artwork. So his original WitchSpring concept, apparently he came up with the idea after a New Year's party in 2015. And he had been talking about making something that he liked as far as RPGs. And that's when he came up with the concept and character Pieberry, the witch who named herself. She finds out who she really is later on, but then she continues to call herself Pieberry and insists that everyone call her Pieberry. And I played all the way through it. It was really wonderful. The pacing was great. This is turn-based RPG. So that means as you build these powers, as you unlock, grow, you have more and more spells and things to choose from. Also, you find new weapons, which you can improve. You find armor, which you can improve. I've heard people complain about how the difficulty is not as much as they would have liked. However, I'm going to counter that with it's not designed to be one of these games that's punishing. The difficulty comes in when you're fighting the monsters. I think from here on out, what I want to do, especially with games that will allow you to adjust the level while you're playing, which WitchSpring does say that they allow you to do, I think I'm going to start with the hardest because that seems to make sense, just to kind of get a baseline of how difficult it is. Because I only played the normal level. In normal, playing through it, it was fun, but it was definitely a lot easier the way that I play these JRPGs, which is just basically I go for a little while on the storyline and then I'll wander around and do some of the collection activities. Like in this game, one of the collection activities that you do, aside from defeating monsters and collecting parts that you use when you go back to your little bungalow or atelier or whatever, from your spell books that you find along the way of the story, you can build things like runes, which are the things that you use to cast your spells. You can improve those with things that you find by fighting monsters. Monsters will respawn after a certain point in time, so you can harvest materials that you need from monsters for the most part. And this ties in with what I was saying about the difficulty, because if you're having problems with just the spell casting part of it or defeating a monster, you also have these things, pets, that you find and you have to capture along the way. The first one that you capture is Black Joe. You're kind of familiar. Picture a fat bird. So like a bird that is like round and has little tiny wings. That is Black Joe. He's actually brown. But anyway, so Black Joe, who's sort of like your protector, kind of follows you around, but you get to try out your mind control, which allows you, for certain characters you find throughout the game, you can capture them, mind control them, give them their favorite food, and improve their powers so they will help you during battle. So you can, as you improve your magic level, you will be able to call more and more pets. Now, the difficulty kind of doesn't make a difference because you just would spend more time building up the things that you use for items. So let's say your potions or things that would help you, you would just build in more of those into your fight. And also the animals that you find along the way respawn. Now, that doesn't improve your general experience. The way the system works, which is kind of an interesting concept, you only get experience for the first time you defeat a group of enemies. And then after that, you just receive the drops, the items from those enemies. So as you get more powerful, you can fight more and more enemies. And then you get to a point where that experience that levels you up, it has it top out at 5. Then the rest is gravy. I probably hit my max 50% through the game, I think. And that probably would be redistributed for your hard mode. But still, you can adjust the way you utilize your items and pets in such a way to make it easier. I kind of understand why people are saying that it's not hard enough, but at the same time, I don't think it's designed to be hard. I think it's designed to be a nice, welcoming game. And the story is pretty good. There's a lot of characters that you meet and you kind of see their arcs unfold. While yours is unfolding, there are some tear-shedding moments, but in general, it's a very cute sort of story. I enjoyed the story. Is it a story that you must play through? I wouldn't say so, but it definitely complements, it doesn't distract from the game. You kind of feel like it contributes. This is an interesting sort of mechanic. What it does for your magic and physical levels, not your experience level, which I talked about, you have to defeat new enemies and that builds your experience in that area. Your other base stats and levels are controlled by, as you defeat enemies, all enemies, you have this little meter that fills that says you have trainings available. And you can store up to 5 of those. What you do is you pick from a selection of 10 mini games. There are 5 that focus on physical stats. There are 5 that focus on magic stats. By completing those, improve Pyberry's strength, agility, defense, HP, magic points, the whole group. It will automatically pick, for example, if you build it up to 5, you can build it up to 5. You can just do one at a time too if you want. But if you build it up to 5, what it does is it selects one of them, and then if you perfect it or meet that level, it shows you how much it's going to increase by at first, and that is, it'll increase by that no matter whether or not you fail the minigame. If you are successful in reaching the target of the minigame, it gives you a percentage that's a bonus. And then if you perfect it, it gives you even more of a bonus. Now, they also have this thing where you can auto-complete the mini-games, so it just will increase the stats, but it doesn't give you the type of bonus. I never used that. I just wanted to play the mini-games. Like I said, 10 of them, pretty good. Silly mini-games, but it kind of added some variety. And then you can also level up the mini-games, which means that you get higher percentage increases if you play the mini-games at higher levels. In order to go to the next level, you need to complete 3 successes. What else do I say about the game? I mean, the music was appropriate. Would have liked a little more variety, but that's just me. It is one of those games, I think, that I would recommend for someone who's just starting out. I can't imagine playing it on a handheld device, which is what it was originally made for. This remaster re-release, it was probably tweaked. Let's just do the 3 ups, 3 downs at this point. 3 ups, wonderful game, a great, well-balanced, relatively short, I would say. I put about 30 hours into it, and normal people, according to the web, usually complete the story in about 20. But I like to wander and build my character and up and so on and so forth. Good music, good story, amazing graphics. So that would be probably 2, is audiovisuals were near perfect. The 3rd up, and this is kind of a weird up. On the map, like other games, you have to pause for the map, or they have a little bit of the map in the corner, and the map itself, you can zoom in and zoom out on the map. Well, what this does, and I'm not sure it does it on other systems, but on the PlayStation 5, it keeps the map at a decent size, and then you use the right thumbstick to increase the circle of the map so it shows you more of the map. So it's not like you're zooming into the map. It is showing you more of the map. The map stays at a reasonable size, and you can see what's going on. It has some transparency to it also, so you can see what's going on through it, but it's not usually necessary. Usually I just, make it larger so I can see where I need to go to find the different items or different enemies, and then I close it back up again. That is kind of cool too. Let's just go into the downs. And these are all very nitpicky sort of downs. There is a mechanism by which, like I said, you mind control. You capture these different pets that help you on your way. There was a tutorial, but as far as figuring out which pets in the environment that you need to capture or can capture, it wasn't 100% obvious. So maybe that could have been a little bit better, making that a little bit more clear. I mean, most of it was just nearly perfect. I mean, it's really hard for me to come up with downs for this game. Would have liked English spoken, but that's not anything that's a deal breaker for me. As far as I could tell, the characters were appropriately voiced, but I don't speak Japanese or Korean. Here's another thing that I noticed that I don't know if it was intentional or not. So the mission arrow, there are certain segments where it shows you the arrow where you need to go, and then other segments where it doesn't. That could have been tightened up a little bit more, in my opinion, as far as being able to select the mission, and then it kind of shows you on the map where you need to go. You can also do things like teleport, but in some cases, the book tells you something very vague about where you need to go. And in other cases, inconsistently, it'll show you, oh, go this direction. That is another very minor criticism of this game, is that. Another down really quick. So they had these couple of mini games that weren't a part of the building your character mini games where you were improving your equipment, and they just didn't seem 100% realized. There's one where if you go to the mines over and over again, you can go and you see this guy who is a metalsmith. He's sitting there. He shows you how to do hammer and anvil thing, and it's a mini game where it basically shows a picture, and you have 3 levels, whether you can hit something hard, medium, or soft, or repair cracks, and each one of these costs some level of stamina. You do that over and over again, and it increases percentages of the stats, but it just doesn't seem, 1, like it's necessary, or 2, like it's interesting enough to where you would want to do it. It seems like an afterthought. It might have been the original game, which is why they included it, but it wasn't really fun like the mini games were. I would definitely recommend this if you're someone who, if Nora was interested in playing JRPGs, I would say play this game, Nora. Definitely would recommend to people who are newer. If you're expecting something that's really, really tough, like I said, didn't play the higher levels, so I can't say this with certainty whether or not there's a difficulty spike, but I don't see it being more difficult. There is a new game plus that they added where you can play through the game again. It's got some new things, but I don't think I'm going to play through it. Compared to JRPGs now, a relatively short experience of about 20 to 30 hours tops, depending on whether or not you want to explore the whole story and collect everything. So yeah, once again, thank you, KIWIWALKS. Excellent job on a game. Actually, I'm looking forward to more of the WitchSpring series to be released on consoles, because apparently what they ended up doing was the first few only mobile, like Apple, Android, and this Chinese storefront called TapTap. The third one was released, and I believe that was on consoles in addition to the cell phones. Please, more games, more of these. I definitely want to see and play, actually, Luna. That's kind of, I'm interested in playing her character's story. And it's kind of interesting. It's going to be the same sort of thing, but from her perspective. So she does different things. And you kind of cross paths with Luna a number of times as Pieberry, but you don't really learn too much about her other than some very basic stuff. So yes, big thumbs up. So that's it for the review. Let's get into the interviews. One quick disclaimer for you here. This is the first time I had ever brought my podcast recording equipment to the show floor. The first recording that I did with Dan, I was doing it kind of like your old school local news reporting where you have the microphone, talk into it, and then point it at them when I wanted them to talk into it. I wasn't used to doing that. There are some spots that we were each talking and didn't have the mic in front of us. You can hear the white noise of the crowd in the background. Sorry if that bothers you, but it was more bothersome when I screened it out entirely, so I just kept it in there. It just seemed like hearing it mixed with people's voices and then going to dead silence just didn't really work too well. Then for the second interview, I did 2 microphones hooked up to the recorder, but the problem was they were way too hot. And I think part of this was because I forgot to record the first part of the interview, so I didn't spend much time looking at the levels, the audio, how the levels were being recorded. So the problem there is these are recorded with hot mics. I did as much as I could to fix that, but it might, like I said, it might be a little loud, but hopefully you can get through that. Between those 2 experiences, I think I've got it down to a plan now for the next time I do it on the floor. So I want to do more interviews next year from the floor. Now I have a plan. All the testing leading up to this wasn't worth, it was worth doing a little bit because it gave me an idea what kind of noise, background noise I would be dealing with. But being in a crowded exhibit hall is a lot different. So, and I don't think it really detracts. It's just a different sort of thing. The microphones work really well when you're eating them, essentially. Whenever I have anyone on the show, the advice I give them is eat the mic. And then if they actually eat it, I charge them money to buy me a new mic because I'm not going to use a pooped out mic. That's just not who I am. The first interview is Dan Paladin, the co-founder of the Behemoth games. And then the second one will go right into that one, which is Aron Koh, who is sort of a vice president of productions for JOFSOFT, and his game that he brought was Pizza Bandit. So we talked a little bit about that. Enjoy the interviews.
Ben is on the road making content for you with his podcast in a bag.
Hello, this is Ben, and I am coming to you live at the time, I guess, from PAX, and we're at the Behemoth booth. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for the folks?
My name's Dan Paladin. I'm a co-founder of the Behemoth. I do design and art direction.
When you first came out with Alien Hominid, did you think it was going to be as big as it became?
I wasn't sure what to think. I knew that we had a version on Newgrounds that was just a free web thing, and millions of people saw it, so I was like, okay, maybe people will see our next game too. But it wasn't my idea to do this. It was actually John Bai's idea. I worked with him in another game development company. It was called Gratuitous Games, and it was mostly a port house. I didn't really like what I was doing, and he didn't either, and they ended up closing their doors. And the craziest thing, I was passing down the hall and I heard him playing the game, and I said, hey, I worked on that. And he goes, really? I was just gonna ask these guys to make a company. And I was like, are you serious? And the stroke of luck of that, because there were only 20 of us, but I didn't really know him because I was in a cubicle and I couldn't talk to anybody, and we were all just, it was oppressive, the dark days. So it all just kind of worked out, and I just wanted to work on something that I wanted to work on finally, and I was excited to do it, and I knew people would like it, but I had no idea how many people were going to like it. I had no expectations whatsoever.
I've been a pretty big fan of Castle Crashers. A lot of fun with my friend Viola, who used to come over and we used to play it all the time. She's the one who got me into it. I was just all old school with the Alien Hominid. I didn't even, it was like, oh, Castle Crashers, let's do it. What is the latest game that you're working on?
That's a hard one because we're making a new game that's unannounced, but we're also updating all of our previously released games.
Okay. And that's for format graphic wise, or
it's a little bit different for each one. So Battle Block Theater is basically getting, I guess you could call it a remaster because it's going to look nicer, it's going to sound nicer, but it's in preparation to get it onto new platforms that are unannounced. But we're also saying there's something else coming, and it's a secret to Battle Block Theater, and I think it's going to be really exciting, but I can't talk about it yet. And then we have something like Castle Crashers has a DLC, Painter Boss Paradise, where you can make your own characters, download other people's characters, even replace enemies. I redid all the character art in that DLC. You can turn it on and off. If you want to be a purist, you can play it how it used to be, whatever. So that's exciting. None of these things have a release date, but they're going to make it super easy for someone to make their own character. You just replace an image. And then for Pit People, we announced that there's going to be a quality of life update. We had no details on that. And then Alien Hominid Invasion and Alien HD are both coming to PlayStation 4 and 5. So we have all that going while making a new game. But it's not really, here's the thing. The Behemoth has always been doing a billion projects, and now we're just sort of showing you behind the curtain what we're up to, because people kept asking, and I wanted to show, yeah, we're going to give our other games love. It's coming. So here it is. So we started a thing called a roadmap, and one lane is new games, and the other one is previously released games, and each street, we're going to keep you along for the journey.
How did you get started with video games? I think I asked you this a little bit before I had the recording on, but...
Well, originally, I had a website where I made short films, and I did 3D first. I didn't even do 2D yet, which is weird to think back on, but...
Yeah, it's not usually the way it goes, right? It's usually you start with the 2D and go to the 3D, not the opposite.
Sketch in 2D, but when I did animation, I only started in 3D, and I remember just trying to outdo it over and over and over again, because I tried one animation, and I hadn't even wanted to be an animator, but I was so stubborn. I'm like, I want to outdo that first animation. Let me do it. And it was 9 months later until I finally felt like I did a little better. And then I was like, I already spent 9 months on this. Why don't I keep animating? And I just want to make everybody happy, reach as many people as I could. And I realized that with film, you can only really watch it or not watch it. There's not really any other ways to experience it. Whereas within a game, you can set a difficulty, you can play with other people, you can mess with each other, and there's all these other ways to experience it. And I was like, well, I really like games. Well, let's work on them.
That reminded me of Parks and Recreation, where Ben was trying to do the claymation thing for a while. He's like, look, check it out. I got this going. And it's just like 5 seconds.
So much work for so little. Yeah. You can have it go by in a blink of an eye, yeah.
I'm just going to ask you the question I always ask all my guests before they appear on my show, which is, what is your favorite word and why?
Oh, wow. Wow. Do I have one?
If you need an example, I've got one that I've been meaning to do a show on, obfuscate. We did ellipsis recently on the show, did aliquot. Yeah. Now, they don't all have to be weird. We also did play.
I like ladle.
Ladle?
Ladle's a good one. It's just a satisfying word. Cheeseborough is also a satisfying word. It's like those metal clasps that have like little wing nuts on each side that you put on like a pole. And I didn't even know what that was until we were in Boston. And one of the guys says, I need one of them cheeseboroughs or whatever. And I was like, what is that? And so cheeseborough was something we would say all the time, but I don't know if there's a singular word. Like, I'll get a word in my head, and ladle's been the latest one.
I don't know about how I would connect ladle to video games.
I know how it would work. So the way a ladle works is you place it in, and then you pull it back up with whatever's in there. Right. To me, that's kind of like you make a game, and people will come to it, and then when you pull the ladle back up, you see who's in there, who wants to play it, because everybody likes different games. So I think, like, to me, that was the first correlation I could think of. Is like,
if you build it, they will come. Yeah. What do you think about the younger generations, their excitement of your games? Do you have kids too?
I don't. Kids are cool. We meet a lot of them, and they grow. You know, we've been around for 21 years, so we see them grow up, and then they start doing stuff, and it's so cool. I think when we made our games at an interesting time, because that was back when we sold physical products. There was no digital distribution when we started. And it's really interesting to think back on then, because even at that time when we made our games, there were genres that were basically dead. Beat 'em ups were gone. When Castle Crashers came out, there were no beat 'em ups to choose from. It had even been a long enough time, like about 5 years or so, that beat 'em ups were not even really part of the landscape. And some people were like, what's this? This is new. And it's like, no, it's not. We got Golden Axe and TMNT and Simpsons, all these things. And Alien vs. Predator, you know, but like people had forgotten about this. 3D was the new thing, and 2D was just starting to get the axe. So, you know, those things had kind of disappeared. And games have gone through these cycles, and a lot of games that are being made now are adversarial, although there's more co-op games being made now. But like, to me, that big moment, that thing I remember was when I played games with other people in the arcade, and we try to capture that moment. You remember those times with people. You know, sometimes when people say, what do you do? I go, I make memories, and I'm just messing around, you know. But it really is true that if you make a game that's co-op that people like, they have a memory with it. And I think that seeing the way the market's moving, it keeps changing. Like, you can never guess where it's at now, right? Like, now it's like digital and subscriptions, and like we all probably wish we had cable again. We used to say, oh, cable's so expensive. Not anymore. Now it's like a million times worse. And so, you know, digital stuff is changing, and the way people play things. Like when COVID hit, all of a sudden we were trapped in our houses, and then Among Us exploded. Among Us didn't release during COVID. It was already out. And then boom, they took off, and I was so happy. They're awesome people. And then, you know, like Phasmophobia was a game where you have to figure out what kind of ghost you're dealing with. And then all of a sudden there were these games where you're working with your friends to identify threats, which I thought was kind of an interesting, like, go-to now that we're like hiding in our house from COVID. And so, like, it was just an interesting thing, but nobody would have guessed how the market was going to go, and keeps changing. And I think, like, with co-op, every time we make a co-op game, I'm looking around seeing what other co-op games are out. I like playing them a ton. And I'm not seeing as many as I hope to see. So I think that's one of our strengths, is we keep making co-op games, and people want co-op games, and we'll just keep we like making them, so we're just going to keep doing it.
Couch co-op has always been fun, but the connection is the arcade for me too. Do you have a favorite arcade beat-em-up game?
Yeah, River City Ransom.
Mine is Cadillacs and Dinosaurs.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's either that and Captain Commando. Those two are pretty even.
Punisher beat 'em up as well,
oh, yeah,
and that one was really good. I always liked the Punisher back in the day. You know what? He might have had a secret identity, but he really didn't. He didn't put on a mask or anything. He just had clothes. He would just go out and shoot people. And I don't know, there was something so human about that. Frank Castle.
Yeah, it's like,
is that you?
What's up? Like, you look different.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was you because you changed your clothes. So there was something about him that I thought was so badass because he just would go out and try to take things into his own hands. Yeah, it was an interesting thing, but I guess I'm over my Punisher phase, I think, but I always did like that. But I think that no matter how the market changes, I think they're always going to like simple stuff. They're always going to like co-op stuff. Why wouldn't you? You know, like just, it's not intimidating. You can try it out. And I think sometimes the industry forgets that not everybody knows how to use a controller or what all the buttons are. You know, when you get really used to it, it's like a second nature. But there's lots of people out there who see a controller and they go, oh, and they're afraid to touch it. But when you know, oh, just one button, 2 buttons, you're good.
That's my aunt right there, and I'm trying to get her into the PlayStation 5 games. Yeah, she's got this thought that she really wants to play Hitman because she likes the idea of putting the banana out and killing people in creative ways and stuff. But it's like she's having trouble with the controller. We tried to play It Takes Two, and it's really tough for her to get that down. But something like the 3D, isometric 3D is a little bit easier, I would think.
Battle Block Theater with her. Yeah, help her through Battle Block.
That is available on PlayStation 5, yeah?
Not at this time.
But
only PS5 is what you're doing, huh?
yeah.
Okay. Well, I hope I have an announcement for that because we did say Battle Block was going to be on new platforms.
Yeah.
So maybe it'll be that. It'll be great. I mean, we want it on everything, so we're going to keep working towards that.
What kind of studio is this, do you think? You still consider yourself an independent? Is this an independent studio?
I think so. I think everybody has a different idea. No one ever agreed on what the term indie means, but I think we're about as close as you could be to it because, we do it on our own time. We do it on our own money. I'm not sure what would be more independent than that. We're not working out of a garage, and we have corporate structure to some degree because California law and all this. So I still think of us as just some guys that are trying to make something fun, some guys and girls, and that's how I see us. If someone views us as indie, I'll be like, yeah, probably, So yeah, I view us that way.
I think that's just where with the market, with all the layoffs and all that stuff that's going on, and people shifting to AI and all these concerns, I just think where it's at is indie. The indie space has an amazing opportunity to put out some really groundbreaking stuff.
Well, there's a lot of risk going on in the indie market too. You'll see new ideas that are really risky and weird. I saw one that was, and I hope it's doing well. I'm trying to remember the name of it. The premise is that when you join, you are a baby who is born through one of the other characters that someone's playing as, and they are now supposed to take care of you. You're never going to see, like, Ubisoft make a game like that, right? They have 1,000 people on an Assassin's Creed game. We have 20. So, like, you see more risk with the smaller groups and stuff. But, premises like that are so wacky and funny and cool to me that, like, I love when I can say, like, something like that. Like, what? You're born through another player and they raise you?
That's the great thing about the industry, and I hope this is an amazing opportunity for indie developers to really kind of, like, I think that's where we're going. AAAs are on their way out. I know they're not, but I mean, it's like creatively. Like, I don't go to a AAA game for anything but just like comfort food or whatever. It's like, yeah, I kind of want to play this new game. But the indies are where you get the really amazing creative ideas from,
Get some bold stuff from them. I still think there's some AAA games I love and everything, but yeah, you get some really bold stuff coming from the indie side and anyone in between. Did we ever come up with a term for anyone in between? Because maybe, I don't know, maybe we fit there better, but there is no, you're either AAA or indie. There's got to be a middle ground in there somewhere,
And AA is too obvious. We're not going to do that. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking time out to talk to me. I would really appreciate it. I really like all the stuff you guys do and appreciate your favorite word, ladle. Let me give you my card. I'm going to turn off this recording thing. Okay, so I'm here live and actually recording this time at the Pizza Bandit booth. Can you introduce yourself really quick?
Hello, my name is Aron Koh. I'm executive producer on Pizza Bandit, and we are from JOFSOFT, the developer.
Excellent. And give me a quick description of how you describe your game.
Pizza Bandit is a mashup of Overcooked and Gears or Helldiver, whichever you like better. So it is a very up-tempo, arcadey shooter action game with a lot of rolling and dodging and evading. And the mission is very similar to Overcooked, where you are cooking pizza, sushi, name your pick. It's about a ex-bounty hunter who has a passion for pizza and opened his shop up, but it's failing miserably. So he's forced to go back to the bounty days and bounty gigs, make funds to support his business. And on his bounty adventure, he gets to cook a little, so he can both hone his skills in cooking while getting the dough to make his own dough.
So these are these zombies? I mean, what would you describe these as?
Okay, so the premise of the game is it's in the future, a little bit sci-fi, cyberpunk-esque. The time travel has been discovered, so whenever he goes on a bounty hunting trip, he gets on his time machine and travels to different timelines or different time and era. So it's kind of temporal bounty hunting, so to speak. Yep. And what was the original question again?
Are they zombies?
Oh, the zombies. So,
yeah.
So when you time travel, there are kind of like time police. We call it time reapers. They're the one who's trying to put order to time-space continuum. So when something that's out of that world is discovered, they would come at you in ways, try to eliminate you from that timeline. And most of the time reapers are actual beings that got trapped in a different time. So they're like little distorted figures and kind of reminds you of a zombie. One of the things that the iconic ones that we have that you will see frequently will be what we call Frankie. He has distorted face, a two-face with like 4 hands. So he got trapped. He used to be called Frankie. We should probably call him Frankies because like he's 2 face and 4 hands, right? So more than one being. Anyway, so yeah, those are the enemies that's gonna be attacking you.
So what sort of inspirations, like story inspiration?
You know what? It really evolved while talking to our fans at these game shows like PAX West, PAX East, and Level Up and stuff. We originally tried to make the narrative around pizza. That was very intentional because this is our second shooter game. The miserably failed the first game. We had like 97% negative review of 25 people who who found it. They hated it because it was so difficult and unable to clear any missions, even the first ones. But they really liked the pizza side of it. So we had pizza mission, we had pizza restaurant, we had pizza supply drops. So, all right, you know what? This time, let's make the game playable, but let's make it everything around pizza.
Were the overcooked style things that you're doing throughout, has that always been a cornerstone of what the game always has been?
So I would say it was a cornerstone. It was one of the missions that we created that actually got a really good reception from the players. So the actual combat, core of the combat design that we were aiming for was a very hectic action-style combat that's layered on top of mission interaction that you have to do simultaneously in the combat. There's no like safe, isolated time where you can just do puzzles and interactions, and then after that you fight. It happens at the same time, so you have to really manage your game.
Yeah, and you've got to really communicate with your fellow players too. In
trying to make that kind of combat, I think Pizza Overcooked one was one of them. We had Payday style one, and a couple more different ones we tried. But when we put a video at a show floor, every time people stack up towards the TV, it's showing the pizza mission. So like, you know what? I think there's something to cooking that makes it really easier to understand and make people really happy about it. So we are kind of like more doubling down on the cooking aspects, but you do have some more adventurous, like typical style missions as well.
Okay, so you weren't like a pizza delivery person or anything when you... Let me tell you, it's not what it's cracked up to be.
It's not a pizza delivery game.
No, it's a pizza protection game, right?
In a sense.
What games inspired this? Like, what sort of favorite game experiences did you draw from for this game?
I think the very similar type of combat would probably be Payday, right? You're trying to crack open a safe while fending off, and getting the jewel in your bag and all that stuff, right? So the core element is that. But I don't know if any of you guys played Helldiver 1, not 2.
Yeah, I played 1. Yeah.
So Helldiver 1 is, top-down shooter type of game, but it's very much you're in the battle, but you're trying to do specific missions while you're combating, right? So that type of game management plus the tactile control of shooting element really spoke to us. So those two and are one of the key inspiration behind the combat design. But overall, like the style of shooting that we really like are Outriders, Helldiver 2, which wasn't out when we started working on this game, and the Alien Fireteam Elite is those type of third-person over-the-shooter games are very actiony, arcadey, looks core, but still very friendly to approach.
I didn't even realize the Outriders. That's a really fun game to play.
So if you think you clear all the story mode on Outrider, and you get to the campaigns at the end, right? And they're pretty difficult. That kind of battle is something that we really aim for. And we misdesigned the difficulty on the first game, so...
It's because you went too far in that direction.
Yeah, it was even harder than Outrider. But this one, I think we make sure we showed it to the gamer during the development process, so... I think we're getting really good reception from the show this PAX.
And it seems like you maintained your vision, kind of what you wanted to, but you adjusted it.
Yep.
The last question is, what is your favorite word and why?
I have two. They're very similar.
Okay.
One, so I'm between pivot and iteration.
Those are both good words, yeah.
I was just talking to a friend who had a show. I haven't met him for like 7 years, and we're talking about the game, and they're like, oh, we pivoted again we're doing this, but we pivoted to do that. And like, when I think about it, any game that I've worked on, you have to pivot or iterate more than at least 5 times, like big pivots, right? Until you get it really right. And I believe the iteration, that process, and getting the right feedback and trying to incorporate it in your own way is key to success.
Absolutely.
I don't know, like, is that pivot or iteration? Iterations is a little small step, pivot is big step.
I think pivot is the action of moving to a different direction, whereas iterate is what you do afterwards, right? You pivot because you need to focus on a different direction. The iteration comes after the fact.
Yeah,
so I think they are related. They are close. But yeah those are both cool words.
Of the two, I kind of like iterate more, but you do need to pivot at given point because iteration can take you so much, right?
And iteration for the sake of iteration is not going to do anything unless you're going the right direction.
Exactly.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining me.
I
really appreciate it. I really enjoyed the game. I had a lot of fun. So thank you so much.
Make sure you wish list.
Yes, definitely wish list. All right. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed the review and the interviews. Next week, I believe we're going to have a clip show for you and then follow that up with basically everything that I did at PAX. Probably a soliloquy episode, or maybe I'll drag Andrew into the studio so he can ask me questions along the way. I haven't quite decided that yet. Might be 2 episodes or it might be a single one. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Once again, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the interviews and review. And we will see you next week. Bye.